right, so welcome back once again. Today we're going to be taking a quick look at the idea of value. Right? In this case, value is referring to the idea that we have different tones of light and dark within a particular image. Right? And for this particular task, I want you to be thinking of 5 distinct values. Right? So I'm just going to create a couple little small kind of swatches here with my pencil crayon just to kind of get you thinking about these values. So we are going to be working with a stepped gradation. That means that we can see how this value scale is changing very distinctly, right? There's a line that separates each of the values. So on the left-hand side, we are going to have our white. And at the far end of our scale, we're going to have black. Okay? And in between is what we call our tonal range. Right? So for step 1, right, white, we're going to be using the white of the paper. The black, I have a Copic marker here that I'm going to use to fill in my square. Just give me a second here to get this filled in. And the in-between areas, right, are going to have different shades of gray, right? So the idea of a value scale is about light. So black are our shadows, white are our highlights. So when using different types of markers, right, we want to be thinking about making sure that we're selecting the best tool. So I'm using Copic markers, and these are already set up so that they have different values of grays right within the marker itself. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what we call that mid-tone value, the one that's going to be right in the middle. Okay? And for that, I'm actually going to be selecting my what's called our C3 marker for the Copic marker. So this is our mid-tone. Okay. And again, I'm going to just fill this in. I'm going to be making sure that I'm using kind of a crisscrossing pattern of marks over top of onto the paper so that I can get a better, more even coverage. I'm just going to remove the paper that's underneath as well. Okay. So that I have a mid-tone. This is what I'm going to call my middle gray. Okay. From here, we're going to go out one on each side. Right, so on this side, we're going to have a darker gray. Right, again, making sure that I'm using the strokes in different directions to try and get a good even coverage. And on the opposite side here, I'm going to get a lighter gray. Okay. And for this particular task, when we're thinking, this is thinking of creating form or three-dimensionality or a sense of space in a work, right? You can keep a fairly limited tonal palette in order to help create that sense of three-dimensionality and to create some visual interest, right? So we have our white, black, keep opening the wrong container here, as well as our what we'll call our mid-tone gray. Okay. So how does this then get transferred into the creation of a particular image? Well, we've talked about using linear perspective and having different planes and surfaces in order to create a sense of three-dimensionality. Adding value will really help with creating that overall sense of depth. So I'm going to just use a simple square. I'm going to transform this into a cube. Okay. I've got my horizon line coming through, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a light source. Right? And what this light source is going to do for me is help to establish where the different lengths of the shadows are going to be located. Right? So now I have the shadows set up, okay? And I can start using my tones on this. So the lightest spot in this particular sketch is going to be the top surface of the cube because the light is hitting that directly. So I'm actually going to leave that the white of the paper. The next sort of lightest side of the cube is going to be this side panel here. I'm going to use my brush pen. I'm going to just quickly fill this in. Right, again, making sure that I'm going in different directions to try and get an even application, right, and even coverage with the ink so it looks polished. And then the darkest side of my panel, of my cube, is going to be the rear side that is in shadow from the rest of the from the light source here. Okay. So I'm going to end up using a darker value on the back, and again, same thing. I'm going to be thinking about the technique of application as well as the tone so that I can get a sense of finish and polish to the work. Right, you can see here this is where I haven't overlapped it enough, so I'm going to come back in, right, back and forth, changing directions so I minimize the overall effect of having the pen marks look a little bit on the messy side. Right. The last thing that I need to be thinking about, right, is what we call the cast shadow, and this is the shadow that sits on the ground, and this is always going to be the darkest shadow that we have in our drawings. Okay, so in this case, I'm using my black. All right, this one's coming around and bring this down the side. And give me a second here to just quickly fill in this area. Okay, so we have now our shadows set up, right? The darker value, a medium tone, a medium dark tone, a light tone, and in order just to kind of like further help this along, right, I'm going to be thinking about just adding a tone to separate sort of the background wall from the surface that this whole thing is sitting on. And I just need a slightly darker tone here, so I'm going to step this up a little bit. Right, so this one here is just a little bit darker than that medium tone. Right, and unfortunately this marker is kind of on its way out. Right, but again, it's a different tone that is going to be used in order to help differentiate the various surfaces that make up this particular drawing. Okay, so by using 5 simple values, right, our white, our black as our extremes, our mid-tone in the middle, right, this is going to allow us to get a dynamic range of values, and that helps to create overall visual interest in your work. All right, good luck, and as always, if you have any questions, please make sure that you're letting me know. Have a good day.